This is a topic I have thought about for some time, but after the recent Witcher 4 announcement and the discourse around it, I think now is a good time to discuss the current gaming climate. I think you must live under a rock to have not heard about the ongoing conflict, where one side is against the sexualization of female characters as it's harmful to women and how it plays into the male gaze. In contrast, the other side dislikes making characters ugly on purpose and calls it censorship. This discourse has been a hot topic for numerous years, but it's starting to reach a boiling point where each new game is being scrutinized for not having attractive female characters. And this all started when the new Witcher 4 trailer was released, which would feature Ciri, a prevalent character in Witcher 3 and overall just as important as Geralt in the books, who would now be the main protagonist moving forward. Certain people started complaining about how they uglified her. First of all, I'm not sure what you think she should look like. Like this guy? If anything, Ciri being a bit mannish is probably more accurate to the book depiction of her, more than what the game did, as she got mistaken as being a boy when she was a teenager and called the ugly one by Yennefer. Regardless, after a YouTuber named Endymion tweeted about how Ciri had been hit by the DEI ugly stick, it started a really annoying conversation, and honestly, there is nothing wrong with her looks here. I'm more worried about how they will justify her being a Witcher, which contradicts the lore. And as I stated earlier, this discourse is nothing new, but it's starting to become more frequent and honestly exhausting. But I believe that this is just a symptom of the problem, as many people have gotten so used to weird character designs and are calling out anything that looks out of place. I know that a certain left side of the spectrum tends to use the argument that if Terminator or Aliens came out today, people would call it woke, and I agree. I think people would actually do that. Still, the only reason they would do it is because of so much stuff in general being woke, so Alien and Terminator would probably be woke in association, even if it's not. I am not here to rank the beauty of characters, as the graph in the thumbnail is not a graph that ranks them by the most beautiful, it's more about how sexualized the character is. Honestly, it's kinda difficult to talk about such a topic in general, as beauty is, well, subjective. Some people might find a woman with big tits, huge ass and filler lips as the sexiest thing ever, while others will go, ew, that's too much. Regardless, people can still tell or feel what true beauty is on the outside. It's universal and it's something that we are conditioned by, and especially for men who are by nature more visually stimulated compared to women. And let's be clear, sex sells. It has been this case since advertising started. So the question is, if this is true, why have so many game companies started to advertise women who are not conventionally attractive to many people? So besides the Witcher 4 trailer that was released on the Game Awards, there was also another trailer which got a lot of heat, which was a trailer by Naughty Dog, and I have seen people defending this new protagonist of the new game, which people are not happy with looking at the likes-dislike ratio. And again, people don't like the appearance of this character and she looks too masculine. What I found interesting though was how the defenders of her looks started to retcon history regarding other characters that are also bald and a bit more masculine. For example, a character named Jack from Mass Effect, and how she is also bald and you could say she is a bit masculine. The arguments was how people would call her ugly if she came out today, and this tweet had around 18,000 likes. But you know what the funny thing was? Well, there is a reason they only showed the face of Jack, because this is how Jack's body looks like. Yeah, I'm sure men would hate her. But I get it. I'm starting to become increasingly more irritated by the side who is complaining about characters not being sexy enough when it makes no sense, like the Witcher 4 trailer. But I also see the same crowd hail games like The First Descent as a great game because look at those sexy female characters, when the game itself is probably mediocre at best. And I was really hyped when the new Lollipop Chainsaw remake was about to be released, and the same people said, play this game, it has no censorship and it has hot chicks in it. And in reality, the game was a pretty bad port and I don't really want to support that. And I'm not a fan of people saying buy this game because it has hot chicks in it and that's it. You should play a game if it's good, not just because it has sexy characters in it. And people are not stupid, well at least not most of them, but it's clear that in the recent 10 years, people are starting to notice the changes. And this is not something that came out of nowhere. Some character designs have just been utterly catastrophic when it comes to design and desexualizing. One clear example would be what has happened to the Mortal Kombat franchise, where in Mortal Kombat 9, most female characters looked like this.
Jade wins. Flawless victory.
And then in Mortal Kombat 10, they looked like this. And you have to wonder, wait, what happened here? And don't get me started on what happened in the most recent installment. The devs have said it's due to making the female characters more realistic and moving away from the childish and immature sexiness. And of course I find it a bit weird because it's a game where you literally have some of the most blood on screen in any fighting game, but showing skin is where the line goes. It makes no sense.
Here, write this down. I'm 36, 24, 36. And I'm a Scorpio. Got it?
And for me, one of the first examples that something was going wrong was with the Mass Effect Andromeda, which was a colossal disappointment. But the other thing was that the main two leads, male and female Ryder, both were based on two real-life models, and the male model looks exactly like the in-game version. But then compare it to female Ryder. What the hell happened here? And don't come out and tell me that it's mocapping that is making it difficult. People have perfected that art since the early 2010s, so no. Something happened here. Someone at BioWare intentionally changed her appearance compared to her real-life counterpart. And as I've said, why? There's also a recent and weird trend of changing characters that had no issue in the first game, but in the sequel, they changed them for the worse, and the two recent examples are Mary Jane from Spider-Man, and this is how she looked in the first game, and here's the sequel. Something changed here, and hell, there was even a false rumor that the character was no longer based on this model but instead on this person. And in Horizon Zero Dawn, we have Aloy, and in the sequel, again, it's a weird trend, and now calling them ugly is maybe a stretch. But it's undeniable that they have been changed for the worse, and let's be honest, they look more masculine. But I think it's this year, 2024, that broke the dam. Because we had Concord with probably some of the worst character designs I have ever seen, where there was no skin shown, no sexiness, just nothing, just weirdness. And if anything, a lot of characters were intentionally made weird and ugly. So in order to understand why all these changes are made, we need to understand the theory behind it. And I believe many people have heard about the term the male gaze, but not many know where it comes from and what exactly it means. And it comes from a feminist theory and how women are exploited in front of the camera, how many of the shots are from a medium close-up shot of women over a man's shoulder, how the camera fixates on a woman's body, close-up shots on different body parts, and there are many examples such as the women from the James Bond movies, who often lacks a character and are instead there just as a love interest for Bond and eye candy for the audience. And for more modern movies, we have the Fast and Furious franchise, where many of these shots of women who enters a room is focused on their asses. And all of this is from a masculine heterosexual perspective that presents and represents women as sexual objects for the pleasure of the heterosexual male viewer. How women are sexualized in front of the camera, I completely agree with it, and sometimes it is a bit too much. But on the other hand, I'm not a fan of the motion that when men are sexualized, like in every superhero movie where each main lead has in their contract to do at least one topless scene, which is why they all go to the gym so much. But just look at how Chris Hemsworth was treated during Thor: Love and Thunder, where the director, Taika Waititi, said it would be a crime against humanity if Chris Hemsworth didn't have a nude scene in Thor: Love and Thunder. And frankly, that's pretty disgusting. And if he was saying this about a female actor, the whole entertainment industry would have been on fire about it and he would have lost his job. The naked Henry Cavill scene in The Witcher TV show, where he did water fasting to get that body for one scene in the bathtub, but also how he was accused of being toxic to work with on the set. And then it later came out that he didn't want to do shirtless scenes, and again, just like with Thor, this would be talked about everywhere if they talked this way about a woman. The main issue is that according to one side, these are not examples of men being objectified or treated as sex objects. Instead, it's just a male power fantasy. And I find that quite disgusting that men can't be sexualized just like women. I think overall I'm just not a fan of the hypocrisy in all of this. One is right, the other is wrong. And the most common defense will be that the supposed power dynamic between men and women is that men are in power and women are not. It's a classic oppressor and oppressed narrative. And when it comes to games, let's be serious. Female characters have been desexualized as I have gone through, and it's intentional to make them more masculine and less feminine, but my issue is also that male characters have stayed the same, and they are just as sexualized as before, if not more. So just like in movies, these characters are wrong and these are okay. I don't think it's fair. I'm all for making whatever you want. And if this is what the developers really want to make, sure, go ahead. It's your right. But I can't shrug off this feeling that it's being done in a malicious intent. But the consumer also has the right to decide what they want to buy, and some might not buy it because of the looks of your characters. And that's fine. Shallow, but fine. Also, you are selling a product, and a considerable chunk of your market is telling you what they want and what they don't want. Instead, they will try to tell you that this is only a tiny vocal minority complaining about it, but looking at the likes and dislikes ratio on many of these game trailers, I don't think this is the truth here. And we have seen many huge commercial flops this year. Let's get into the main argument of this video, which is something I don't tend to see people discuss, and it's how many of us don't demand or require characters who are super sexualized like Bayonetta or Eve from Stellar Blade, because if I'm being honest, it can sometimes break immersion of the game by having, let's say, big tits on screen the whole time, and I'm not a fan of how pretty much 90% I hear about the games is about the characters' looks, not the gameplay, not the story, not if these are interesting characters, it's just how they have sexy women in them, and I'm sorry, but I won't spend $60 for that. Just give me a good game instead. One of the best character designs I have ever seen is honestly a character that most people don't know, but they have seen, which is Faith from Mirror's Edge. And she is not over-sexualized, has no huge boobs or ass, she's athletic, she wears a lot of clothes, short hair, and it all makes sense because in the game you do a lot of parkour, and I don't think anyone would ever mind if a character looked not too over-sexualized but also not ugly and more like Faith. It's the middle way, or the third way, which we should try and strive for more, and the most important aspect is for it to feel natural. A lot of the recent characters and their looks just don't feel natural, they feel altered. I think these are also designs that both sides of the political spectrum, men and women, would also agree with, as they are great designs. Because otherwise characters like the ones from Concord will get hated by one side and liked by another, And let's say Eve from Stellar Blade will be loved by one side and hated by the other. Of course, characters are more than just their looks. What's more important is their character, motivations, ambitions, what they strive for. But I can't fault people for not giving each character a chance if they look like something that you don't even wanna touch. And as I said earlier, devs can make whatever type of character they want. That's their right. But in the end, it's up to the consumer, and sometimes it's better to meet halfway, create characters that fit the story and the world they're trying to tell. Don't censor what you're doing and just create good games. Because honest to God, I'm getting tired of this current discourse regarding the looks of characters from both sides. I'd rather take a character like Faith, Jade or Jill Valentine anytime, any day, if it means this discourse will go away. Well, that's it. If you liked the video, well, you know what to do. Have a good one, guys.